Hopefulness 2.0, April 6th. I have a headache that has been going on for the last, it's noon, thereabouts, for about the last 18 or so hours. I had a phone call yesterday with a psychiatrist, went well. I always feel better after talking with her. And then of course the headache came around, so that kind of ruined all that. Some water. Oh, that opening shot is of the Palace shoe. I'm going to make some of that in a bit. Gotta go to the pharmacy, get a refill. Well, I don't know if I'm going to do that today because this headache is just... It was fine for a bit. I'm going to make some rice too. I gotta clean out the thing for it though, but while I'm gonna let this sit for a bit and let it kind of warm up. But go ahead and turn on the oven. I had a thought earlier this morning, but then that thought disappeared. I don't know what it was about, unfortunately. I think I'm getting it back though now that I'm painting here. So I might as well put it on camera while I'm thinking about it. So I was watching this new episode, or episode, whatever you want to call it, new video from, that is not a lot, but at the same time, that's also not a lot. I think I'll just give myself a little bit more with the newer one. Newer parchment paper. Honestly, I didn't think I was going to use it this much. But anyway, concept was based on the fact that I was watching the Shibasaki video, new one they just posted. And one of the things about, especially painting, from what I've been able to gather through his work, Bob Ross and the like, is you have to build it from afar to close up, for the most part. When it comes to painting, at least, some things may require a little less when it comes to other artworks. But generally speaking, I would say that most art needs that approach. It needs the approach of a distant foundation, if you will, and then you build upon that. But the distance, the stuff that's in the distance, that is harder to see. And so it has less detail. Just like in real life when it comes to actually, looking at stuff. When you look at something that's really far away, it's harder to see because it's further away. But stuff that's up close, easier to see. Well, then I got in my head that that's kind of like a metaphor for reality. Especially when it comes to, day-to-day life and goals and things of that nature. short-term goals are generally easier to figure out because they're closer. You know, in time, not so much in distance, but time in a way is a form of distance, metaphorical, if you will. Just throw away that plastic wrap. Scrape up as much of this as possible. I don't know how many I'm going to get. I don't even know how big they're going to be, but... And so, like right now, this is a short-term goal. Me trying to accomplish this pat a shoe cream puff situation. A longer goal would be the next sourdough, or what I'm going to eat for lunch, or even going and getting my medication today if it comes down, if I'm able to do that. But the getting the medication thing is definitely a further along goal today, especially because of an obstacle, the headache. If the headache persists, one might say, well, you just have to struggle through it. No, I'm not going to fucking struggle through a headache. Especially getting on public transit and all that shit, and having to deal with everything else that you deal with when it comes to public transit. I'm not going to do that. Might have actually been a good idea to use the small one, because there's not a lot on here, but I'll make do. I mean, I did so little yesterday because this fucking headache. And also, side note, I like it when these aren't like perfectly uniform. When they come out, when I do them when they're not perfectly uniform, they come out nice and craggly. They look kind of cool. And I feel that it has a better taste because it's better texture overall too. Wow, it's like enough for 5. That's just crazy. And these are pretty small too. Yeah, so I've stopped caring about the shape of these as much, as long as they're roughly the same size, and they're roughly, when it comes to shaping them on the parchment paper, it's still a good idea to kind of give them a bit of a roundness, at least with regards to their physical property, footprint, if you will. That way they cook more evenly. And that's the more important thing. The fact that they're, not perfect little domes or anything, I don't give a fuck. But yeah, some of them turn out great when they're perfect little domes, but they also turn out great when they're not. And I like that. It reminds me of Adam Ragusia's meringue video, where he's being all like aggro and shit. He's like, no! You don't have to do it this perfect way, blah, 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 blah. It's great. A couple of them are a little bit bigger than the others, and hopefully that won't fuck with my cooking times too much, but... It's funny, it's like... Yesterday when I was on the phone, psychiatrist, she was like, she was asking if I was still doing it. Still doing it. Yeah, that narrows it down. Still recording. I said, yeah, and I think she had asked if I liked it, and I'm like, not really. And she'd asked, why I kept doing it. I didn't really know. I still don't know. Part of it is, documentation. I guess part of it's journaling. I don't know. Sometimes I don't want to do it. Sometimes I do. It does give me a bit of a daily schedule kind of thing. A bit of a daily ritual, if you will. Sometimes I take my meds on camera. Sometimes I do it right before camera. I'm out of meds, so I gotta go get some today anyway. I think, hopefully, if I can, because of stupid brain, the headache and all. I was gonna do the rice, which means I need to clean. But going back to that metaphor, or at least the fact that I was considering it to be a metaphor, the idea that one must build a foundation, look at the distance stuff, you could say that my current picture that I'm painting, quote unquote, is going back to Pasadena City College. And in order to accomplish that, getting there and how to get there is kind of on the blurry side. I don't know how that's going to happen, especially because, admissions and stuff is going to be, months down the road. But it can't be too far down the road either. So I've got to look closer and figure out, so the next step with regards to that is admissions and stuff. And to be able to get to the admission situation, I've got to be able to stay here or at least find something. And right now, even looking is so depressing. I'm not looking for another place to stay, so instead I'm looking for a job. And that is the sort of the clearer, closer stuff that you've then built over time. You lay down whatever foundation. Is it going to be night or is it going to be day? Where's the sun going to be in the sky? How is the sun going to light the sky, etc.? Look at Bob Ross, and he does the same. If you look at what Bob Ross does, it's so incredibly formulaic. But formula then allows you to expand upon it. I was watching a college humor video. Literally, it was the one about the birthday month. The girl who has the birthday month, and how it's like, oh, we're gonna do these things and we're gonna do this thing, and there's always and somebody had broke down the structure pretty well and how the formula works. You have this one person who does this really outlandish thing, and then you have other people who are kind of there, either supporting or kind of on the fence, and then you have the other person who's sort of the audience surrogate. And the audience surrogate is at first they're kind of like this, and then it gets more and more, and they raise the stakes, and they continually get more and more emotional, and more they see the absurdity of it and get reactionary and all. And they broke it down really well, and it's this is the college humor format, which is actually perfectly acceptable. Having a format for a joke is how a lot of jokes work. You have a setup, you have the build-up, and then you have the punchline. And they even mention the heartfelt monologue of the person, and then after the monologue, they still go and they do their stupid thing. And it's perfect. I love it. And I like the fact that they wrote that down, because it helps me to sort of break down what I'm thinking of about this whole, background focal point thing that I'm, alluding to and the like. And the thing is while some things may seem formulaic, sometimes the formula is all you need so that you can actually do the thing that you set out to do. And, Bob does that with his paintings and the like. It's, foundation, light source, there's usually a mountain. There's usually a lake. There's usually some trees. But all of this is done with the express purpose of teaching you how to paint these things, how to paint. The crisscross strokes, when it comes to, especially like the background stuff, and blending colors and the like, and then when it comes to actually, oops, I'm gonna put this egg in with my egg whites. Add another egg to it. I'm gonna make me some eggs. It's great. I'm gonna go in here for about 25 minutes, but first, turn that down to 375. Where the hell is my timer? It's hiding out somewhere. See, this is also another thing, like, I haven't really been, like, focused in the last few days for one reason or another. And, throw a touch of olive oil, just a little bit. I'm also going to throw in some butter. I have about a tablespoon. That works. Get rid of you. Grab a fork. Whoops. Great thing about egg whites, they do stick around for a while. I was considering doing the whole meringue thing, but it's just more effort that I want to deal with right now. Especially because, like, then you're trying to make meringue cookies or some other kind of thing, and it just doesn't really work out that well. But, you know, trying to get back to the metaphor. It's like, sometimes I swear I'm fucking fingernails and shit. You know, I think I may have more or less made the point, but formula, kind of expanding upon it, really does help. If you can figure out the formula of a thing, you know, be it, what is it I'm thinking of? Something to do in life, whatever it may be, or if it's, you know, I don't know. I can't think right now. I'm trying to make these damn eggs. But, you know, conceptually, the idea is start with the foundation and then add the details later. And the formula can be the foundation as well. Doesn't have to be, but that can be a form of the foundation. You know, when it comes to all the various rules of writing, you know, that's a form, that's a kind of foundation. The details aren't there at that point. But when it comes to each individual project, you then can start to expand upon the ideas. It would have been better to cook these, especially because it's going to be scrambled, but it would have been better in the pot, but it's dirty at the moment. I gotta clean it. Yeah, having a dishwasher would be significantly better. It's whatever. It's delicious though. I mean, it's fucking broth. It's got a little fat, it's got a little gelatin, it's got some proteins in it, it's got all these flavor compounds that are involved, especially Maillard reaction related. It's just delicious. So what do I add after the fact? Basil, oregano, and some pepper. But that's going to be after I plate, not before. Because that's what causes the discoloration. That's what I've learned over time. It's like if you add the pale stuff into the egg, and this is another foundational thing too. You know, Gordon Ramsay's going to tell you that you shouldn't put salt in your eggs because it'll help toughen them up. There's no science to that. J.K.G. Lopez Alt has done. You know, I cleaned this fork just so I could turn around and use it again. How funny. He did the science to determine if that kind of sentiment was right, and he learned that it was not right. So you can salt your eggs whenever the hell you want, is what he's basically saying. You don't have to listen to Gordon about it. But one thing I would definitely say is don't put any darker color seasonings into your eggs. And the reasoning for that is because it will discolor your eggs and turn them kind of grayish. And that is one of the, that's something that I wasn't really understanding why my eggs always turned out gray looking. I didn't pick up on that, but now I know because I had tested it a couple of times and I was like, oh, yeah, don't put pepper in your eggs while cooking them. I mean, you can still put you can put seasonings in whenever the hell you want, really. There's no hard and fast rule, but if you're going for appearance, darker stuff should go on later, towards the end, after you've plated it, essentially. So. One of the problems about scrambled eggs is just multiple kinds. There's ways to do it, if you will. And one of them is to just let it sit and get the bigger curds. One is to continue cooking, continue scrambling while it's on the heat. I have it on like a low medium heat right now. Turn it up just a touch. It's largely egg whites. There's kind of like a half of an egg and then a whole egg in here because the one half with the egg wash that I've been using it for a couple times. So. Heat a bit so that it can kind of absorb what's on there and not overcook. I don't like my eggs wet. It's weird for me. Consistency is strange. And I don't like them dry either when all the moisture has been pulled out. It's such a weird balancing act. That's one of the reasons why, one of the tests of a good chef is how they cook an egg. And then obviously when you have more surface area, more of the wetness will be driven off. Now I have a dirty pan. I have a lot of dishes to clean later. A little bit of water sitting there. How much time do I have left on this? 16 it says? Okay. I like me some pepper. And ever since I started doing the fresh ground pepper, it's been a game changer when it comes to me liking pepper. Like, I like pepper. But you know, it was always the pre stuff, you know, the pre-ground shit, containers and stuff. And then I got one of those like self-contained pepper mills, and I was like, this is pretty good. And then I got, of course, the actual pepper mill with the fresh cracked pepper, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. That's great. And then I can adjust size and grind and all that stuff, and it works out really well. Yeah, good. One thing I've also found about eggs is that, and I mean, it makes sense, but the more you process the egg, the less filling the egg is. It makes perfect sense. Because the filling of a thing, something that fills you up, the thing that makes you feel full, is a thing that has a harder time being digested. Or takes longer to digest. So, a hard-boiled egg is just the whole egg as it is, no processing done to it whatsoever, no breaking up of albumin and you know, the yolks and whatnot. The yolks, even when they're nice and jammy, they're still kind of on the drier side. Those eggs are good. So you have a whole egg, right? Well, if you undercook, so if you cook it like to the point where the yolk becomes dry, it's going to even be harder for you to process, because then your body has to produce more mucus and whatnot to effectively get that shit moving into your system. Whereas a really liquidy, you know, scrambled egg, not as much. It's not going to be nearly as filling, because it's going to be more processed overall. They don't look good now. The water's all kind of gray and weird, but it's still good. And I'm sure part of the culinary arts world is like, there's a way to cook an egg where you're not going to have dark gray water, even if you have pepper in it. I don't care. Not right now. Doesn't matter. So that's part one of my breakfast. Part two is going to be the pâte choux puffs with some more of my lemon curd. I'm going to figure out how to accomplish finishing that. We'll see. But yeah, so the foundation is going to be set, lacking in distinction and detail when it comes to the concept of time as a foundation. It will be further away. I'm trying to say all this stuff so that I can kind of like convince myself, I guess, but at the same time it's like also trying to make sense of the thought too, because it was semi-dream, semi-wake, and after having watched this video, so I mean, obviously the details are closer and closer. And, you know, right now the details are, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go, like, just handle being able to go get my meds today, even though I should. If I was driving a car, it wouldn't be a problem. It would take me 30, 40 minutes maybe, depending. Traffic and stuff. There and back, total. But with being outside, and standing in the heat, and, you know, dealing with the bus and the various noises and the starting and the stopping and the jolting and all that stuff, I don't know. So there's a lot of unknowns. Well, there's a lot of knowns that might have unknown impact that I don't want to have to deal with. So I'd rather not deal with them at the moment. If this clears up in the coming hours, then sure, why not? Just have to do it before it's time to go to, or before they close, rather. Within a certain time frame, of course. So that is what is on the docket today. I need to make a phone call, at least just one place that called me earlier today, left a message. Hopefully I'll be a little bit more in spirits, especially after cream puffs are done. And I mean, when I'm done cooking those, I feel great, especially once they're done right. It's one of the reasons why I also set it for like 25 minutes, because it's when that's like time to check on them kind of thing. If they're still really pale, then I'll keep them in there for a few more minutes. I think the last couple of times it was like 32 minutes total. Yeah. I mean, you know, the crazy thing about this headache is like it was getting worse and worse and worse. I get up and I take my shower. After taking a shower, you know, I was like doing this the whole time while I was in there. Like I'd be finished wiping. I was finished cleaning myself and I was just doing this. And yesterday, I don't know why, I hadn't taken any Adderall yesterday, but I was clenching the shit out of my teeth. And I usually do that when I'm on Adderall. It was almost like the Adderall lasted a whole ass 24 hours. And then some. Because I will occasionally get mild headaches when I'm on Adderall, and occasionally I will also clench my teeth. It's not always the case, but it does happen. These are side effects that I have to deal with. These are side effects that I generally am okay with as well, because usually the Adderall helps me accomplish shit. But, yeah. Oh, also one thing about, you know, I was mentioning, I think it was like yesterday? I don't remember when it was, fuck it, doesn't matter. Maybe it was the day before. We're just talking, I'm speaking of EverQuest and all that. There was this thing that I was like, hey, there's this cool ability where you can like summon all of your corpses and then get all of your experience back. And I thought it was a 2-hour cooldown. It's 120 hours, which is 5 days. But still kind of, yeah, that's still useful. And the fact that it's 5 days is still, I would say, pretty benevolent. It's like, hey, you have 5 days to not fuck around. Or to fuck around and not find out, if you will. So, but yeah, that was an interesting thing to learn. But it's getting warm in here. I'm gonna take off all my clothes. It's getting hot in here, so I'm gonna take off all my clothes. So saith Nelly. It's getting hot in here. Anyway, have fun.